Welcome back to the podcast. I am Joe, another person from my TwoMorrows podcast shows over the next couple of weeks. Joe is the editor of Brick's Journal. Now, Joe, as a first time guest, I usually ask the guests what got them into comic books and what made them a lifelong fan. But are you even into comic books?
Oh, I used to be. I was into comic books in in college, mid 80s. What got me back in was a Batman issue with Swamp Thing. That was, and that happened because I was in the hospital at the time. And I was laid up and I ended up getting a stack of comic books, a small stack from my parents because I was in the hospital. And one of them was that particular issue, and that got me back into both Batman and wandered eventually into Swamp Thing. And that was when Alan Moore was doing the run. And during college, I really got into it because by that time, John Byrne had shown up in Alpha Flight, and I ended up being a voracious reader of his stuff, and kept on reading for about 10 years afterwards. But then I was a victim of the comics speculator explosion. And when all the X titles became everything known to man, I ended up basically dropping all the titles. And I've been trying to go back, but now comics have gotten a little bit too dark for me. It's pretty funny when the best comics I can find looking around are some of the retro oriented ones like the Batman Adventures revamp or something like that. Quick, easy. We know who's the bad guy, who's the good guy. It's not too dark, and it's all wrapped up within one issue.
So tell the fans a little bit about yourself and what you do in life outside. I know you don't do Big Journal 24/7, but a little more about Joe Menlo.
Oh, what I do, actually, I do Brick Journal not 24/7, more like 18/6. That'd be the best way to put it. I was a graphic artist, and I actually was an art director at one time to a couple of places. And I call them different lives because they're all different professions. I worked over in pharmaceutical advertising, I worked in newspaper advertising, but then I basically fell into Brick Journal. And for a while, I've been doing Brick Journal for the past 20 years, in fact, and doing freelance art on the side. And so that's what I've been.
So you're also a Disney fan, and you've been a cast member.
I worked over at Disney for 4 years in a non-glorious role over in Crabtree Valley. I helped open the Crabtree Valley Mall store in Raleigh, which is dead now. And then I ended up working over at the Cary Town Center Mall, which is not only is the store dead, but the mall is dead. It got torn down last year. But then I ended up transferring over to Disney Quest over at Walt Disney World in 1999, which is also dead. So there seems to be a running thread here. But during those 5 years, I ended up getting to know about the company, and I really became a fan of what they do and how they operate, barring certain salary practices. But I'm definitely a Disney fan, and one of my long-term dreams is to end up going back and working as a cast member doing a sketch art for them and winding down my life doing that over at Disney World or Disneyland because that seems to be such a cool gig. Just sitting there doing sketches. I couldn't see a
Okay.
better life.
So what got you into Legos, and how would somebody new dive into the world of Legos?
That's a tough one. I've been building for some time. And so if you really want to trace it back, I started back as a kid. But when you're a kid, you build your set, you throw it out the window, and you play with the pieces, what's left over, and you just go on with your life and do whatever. I always had a set or two laying around. And I'm an army brat, so we actually got sets when we were in Germany, and somehow those sets survived being shipped over to the U.S. when we moved back. And so there was always a set or two laying around, but I didn't really take it as a serious builder. There's a certain stage where you just make stuff and it looks awful because you have the colors laying around. You don't have anything with you, so you end up making a card that uses every single color you have. It looks awful, but it's a card. You go with it. You don't know any better. While I was working at Disney Quest in 1999, remember I mentioned the salary problem. I wasn't being paid enough. So I ended up getting another job at the Lego Imagination Center over at Disney World. And I just happened to look, and there were sets, and they just released the sets for Lego Star Wars. And this is the first licensed property they did. And I ended up getting that, and the bug bit me at that point because I looked at the X-Wing model, built the X-Wing model, and said, hey, this is cool for what it is, but I think I can do something better. Not a better X-Wing, mind you, but something better. So I just tore it apart and I started building pieces. I had an adult sensibility as to what I could do. And so I thought about that and I built something and I thought, okay, this is pretty cool. Didn't think too much about it until a couple weeks later, the internet's growing. There's a website called Lugnet that just popped up. That became the international network of Lego builders at the time. And I discovered you can get older sets on eBay. So it became a case of, wow, I can get those sets from way back when. And I can get some more parts than I know I need and start gathering parts. And that's how you start off as a fan. You get curious, you wander around. I happened to be curious at the right time. 10 years or 5 years before that, there was no internet. You just had to look around your neighborhood. That's not going to work. But the internet was there, and there turned out to be not only Lugnet for networking, there was also Brickshelf. These are all .coms. You can look them up. Brickshelf.com, Lugnet.com. Brickshelf became a gallery, so you can post your photos. So Lugnet became the place to document what you posted. The community just grew there. And what was cool is that the community wasn't just a small little itty bitty local thing. This became an international community, people all over. So you had people, Americans like me, who were just starting out, and the Germans and the Dutch who have phenomenal English, phenomenal building because they've been building for a heck of a lot longer than we have. And that's how I started. And I just branched off from there. About a year later, I ran into a site called Bricklink, which is 25 years old now. There, they sell parts individually. People actually buy sets, cap tons of sets, part them out, put them out in a shop and say, hey, you want this part? You got it. And suddenly that made it a quantum leap for anybody who wanted to build something, because like they didn't have to worry about, oh, I need to go to eBay to buy 27 of these sets because I need this one specific piece. It became a matter of going online and searching and going, I want 27 of these pieces. And it turns out there's a shop that has that, and you pay for shipping and you wait. So that's how it happened. That's the evolution of a Lego fan. Times have changed, and the Lego fan threshold has changed along with it, because you can see Lego online everywhere. And with everything being so ubiquitous, it's a lot easier.
So, how did you come into contact with TwoMorrows, and what inspired you to launch Brick Journal at TwoMorrows? Because it's like the old Sesame Street skit where they go, one of these don't belong here together because
I was actually on unemployment at the time. I was between jobs. I had been let go of, let's see, which job was I let go of? The problem with advertising is that it's a job of constant turnover, whether you like it or the industry likes it. And so one of the gaps in 93, 94, the first time I was let go, I took it upon myself to find a volunteer job that was as close to a real job as I could find. And it turns out the Democratic office over in Raleigh wanted volunteers. So I just showed up every day, 9 to 5. Normal gig, whatever within reason. If you want me to do something, I'll do something. I ended up doing, and I learned so many things from being a volunteer there that were amazing. And one of the people that I met was John, because it turns out on the side I did freelance advertising for candidates in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and it turns out he was literally, his office was across the street, down a couple of buildings. And we crossed paths and we started talking. Nothing came of it. I submitted my portfolio for him to look at for freelance work. He said, oh, yeah, you got pretty good work. And that was the end of it. The typical, you're a good kid. Go on. Fast forward that to around 2005 when I first was thinking about the Brick Journalist launching. I actually made a couple of episodes. No, I get on people for saying episode, but it's like issues. Made a couple of issues online and I laid them out like a magazine, like I wanted to. So there were online PDFs that were available, and I went over to visit him and show him because I wanted a critique. And I wanted him to go, "What do you think of this?" And because he has magazines, I don't. He should know. And I went there, showed him the magazines on my laptop, and he just went, "That's pretty good." And I was like, "Okay, if you ever want to get it printed, I'd be interested." And going as partners. And the funniest thing was that for a while, I was grandly insulted by the gesture because I was like, why would he want? I was like, what's his deal with this? And I just want to print this out. I just want to get it out the door and have it so people can see what is the what why would he want to profit? And it took me the longest time to realize this. Wait, if he's into it, like I'm into it, but he does the work that I have no clue how to do because that's one reason why I went over to have him take a look at it. It's like he has just as much vested interest as I do to make the things succeed. And by that time, the Lego company was starting to court me to try and get the magazine launched. And so between him and the actual company, things just fell into place. And it was just one of those wonderful little coincidences where it's like I wouldn't believe this would have happened to me if it wasn't a movie or anything. Somebody would just look down and was like, that's just bad writing. And it's like, no, that's just really good luck.
So you've been doing this for 20 years. Did you think it would ever last for 20 years? And how has it changed over time throughout the years?
Ooh, it's funny you should mention that because I'm supposedly working on a magazine right now for Deadline. And I am. It's just that it's turning out to be more of a, what do I call it? More of a horse than I thought it would be. And I ended up looking back at a bunch of the issues. One of the things I have noticed is that way back when, the idea of Lego events is also about 25 years old too. And so initially when the magazine came out, there was a big focus on events. And we're not talking just events here in the States, we're talking events worldwide. And so there was coverage of the first event at over in Poland, for example, and then the first one in the United States over in Chicago. That tapered off because the events became more regular, and as they became more regular, the same things started showing up. So it became one of those things where it's like people bring their stuff every year, and if they go to a number of shows the same year, they bring the same stuff, which is fine. That's to be expected. For a magazine, though, it's using when you have two events, and this happened in one issue, two events where the benchmark model was the same model. So I had to I had to taper it off at that point. The other thing is that there's much more diversity. So that's a welcome sight. It used to be a manly, very manly. It's still very much a manly thing to be a Lego builder, but there's a lot more women coming in. And what's really great about it is that they bring in a different sensibility. I will be shot, filleted, and for generalization, but men are great at engineering. They are great at making things that work most of the time. I'm not a notably good example of that, but if you want to see a beautiful creation, chances are a girl was behind it. They have a better understanding of form, working with the fact that the base shape of a Lego brick is square. Men don't care. Men will make a spaceship because it's easy. Most of them are square or have square edges. That's just the way it is. And I blame myself for that too. But at the same time, there are beautiful things out there that are coming out now that are done by women and kids. Kids are coming becoming better and better because they're learning from their parents and their previous generations and taking the next jump in building and coming with just some beautifully astounding models. And we're not talking large, huge table-wide models because those are always out. There's also the small ones that fit in your hands. There are some people that can do great things with just a little handheld model. My best model, the one I'm very proud of, is I built Mickey Mouse. The Disney fan comes out in me. I finally built a Mickey Mouse that fits in my hand, and I don't show it too often because I proved it to myself. I don't have anything to prove. So I show it whenever I to a couple events, and the events that I've shown up to, they tend to win awards, which is fine, but they've done what I want to. So I'm very happy with those. But you don't see the diversity in building has increased with the diversity of people involved in the hobby.
So, what type of fan would get into Brick Journal itself?
Somebody who wants to see how things are built. Somebody who wants anybody who is interested in Lego building. We used to have a strong focus on what the company does, but we backed off on that mainly because the community has so much more to offer, so many more different things. It's like you go over to a Lego exhibition, you go over to a Lego event, you compare that to a Lego store. Which one has the better displays? Boo. There you go. That's the end of the story. You can't really argue that. If you want to see more about how, not necessarily how do people build, but why they build and show what they build, that's what we provide. And hopefully through that, we inspire people to build on their own. We do have instructions, although the problem with the instructions is that the more pieces, the more complicated the instructions. And anything that's truly complex, forget it. That would be an issue. And so we try and keep it small, simple, but fun to make it an introduction.
Do you think your Brick Journal like exceeded your initial expectations from when it first started? And you're like, wow, I never imagined it would be this big or this important or this popular.
My wisecrack answer to that is that Brick Journal, I only expected Brick Journal to last 1 year, and we're 19 years beyond that. And to be honest with you, we're 18 years beyond my expectations because I ran it for 2 years to make sure it would run online. I ran 9 online issues, PDF only, and then I went with Lego and TwoMorrows and launched the official print magazine. So it's been amazing to see, looking back, it's been amazing for me because it's one of those things where it's like a magazine about this, get out.
A
You gotta be
magazine about this in a company that does comic book centric magazines and trades.
yeah. Well, the cool thing about this is just that you don't think about that necessarily. You think about the fact that, and this is the key to TwoMorrows, the people who are running the respective magazines have a lot of passion for what they're doing, John included. Yes, I am trying to fit. If you look in that context, yeah, I'm the odd man out. But if you look at how everybody does their work in their respective magazines, I read Back Issue and I'm starting to read Retro Fan now. Everybody has the same level of passion. And John has the same level of passion. And what's really neat about John is that he will 95% of the time leave you alone. He'll leave you to do your job, which for me, that's really good and really bad in some parts. It's really good in getting the magazine done because I know what I'm doing most of the time. That's really bad in managing deadlines, which I'm not very good at all. But outside of that, he lets you do what needs to be done to get the magazine going. And so as a result, we've had some really neat issues. And creativity in a magazine is not something that's been, or the uncreativity has not been something that people have commented on. So I'm very happy to be with TwoMorrows. If it was if it was a larger company, I probably would be hit with regular flack about, oh, you need to do this, oh, you need to do that, you need to do this, you need to be pointing toward the general trends. I don't pay attention. I just look for the best building out there that I can find at the time and go with it. and that's the end of it. And so it's a very good relationship, although I don't think it's a very unusual relationship, I would think.
Joe Menlo, celebrating 20 years of Brick Journal. Thank you for joining me on the podcast. This has been a very fun show to do. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Great talking.